letter from the Gantry.
Cheers, Neil. My most recent commentary for the Premier League's World Feed was the Easter Monday match between Tottenham Hotspur and Nottingham Forest. A standalone game in its own right. Both clubs pushing for Champions League qualification, but by different routes. Spurs' excellent win away to Eintracht Frankfurt had pushed them further along the Europa League pathway, where the victor earns a place in Europe's elite competition next season. Forest are embroiled in the battle for a Premier League finish high enough to earn the same prize. Top 5 this season because of the progress across the 3 European competitions by English clubs. Forest arrived in North London outside that 5, but left in 3rd place after a gritty 2-1 victory, their 18th of the season, inflicting on Tottenham their 18th defeat. Chris Wood, much mentioned on the Joy of Football, notched his 19th Premier League goal of the campaign. It proved to be the decider. It is a fixture that's had quite a past. The 1991 FA Cup final, for example, decided by an own goal from Forest star defender Des Walker, who'd grown up supporting Spurs. The great Brian Clough's first match of his peerless 18-year reign in charge of Forest was an FA Cup tie away to Tottenham, who had a well-deserved reputation at the time as Cup Kings. Clough had inherited an average second division side, but inspired them to a 1-0 win at the old White Hart Lane. He was off and running. But arguably the most significant meeting between the two clubs happened in October 1983, the first football match ever shown live on English television. In its entirety, to be pedantically accurate, because in 1960 there had been an experiment which involved the partial broadcast of Blackpool versus Bolton, also from the old First Division. That plan was quickly scrapped. The fear for decades was that live football on television would discourage fans from going to the games, and it really wasn't until the advent of specialised sports channels on a subscription service that the games authorities and the broadcasters found the right balance between the stadium and the screen. In 1983, it was a tentative toe in the water. The deal allowed 5 live games each for ITV and BBC to set alongside the regular highlights packages. That inaugural game was in October because of the belief that there would be limited interest in August and September. Television ratings generally only perked up after the end of the summer. Another concern was that a whole game would be dull for a nation used to edited highlights, with what were termed the boring bits cut out. No one then could have imagined the impact the live coverage would have with its link with the Premier League, which itself was still almost a decade away. The choice of Forest for that historic match had a fair bit to do with the charismatic Clough in the away dugout. Since his baptism in North London in 1975, he'd loaded the cabinet of the City Ground with trophies, including 2 European Cups. Spurs were playing attractive football too under Keith Birkinshaw and would lift the UEFA Cup at the end of that season. Jim Rosenthal presented the coverage, commentary from Brian Moore and Ian St John. Spurs came from behind to win 2-1. The crowd of just over 30,000 was below capacity, but bigger than the home game before and the one after, which were not televised, so there was no real absenteeism to threaten the deal. The attendance on the recent Easter Monday evening was almost double that in a much bigger stadium, of course, but emphasising how over 40 years on, broadcasting the game live has enhanced its appeal. It was 2-1 again, but this time to Forest. Brian Clough built his teams on defensive solidity and would have appreciated the resolve shown in this victory. He valued highly the necessity of a top-class goalkeeper. Matt Sells is a worthy successor to Clough's most renowned number 1, Peter Shilton. A former goalkeeper himself, Nuno Espirito Santo, is a calmer character in the dugout, though he has had his moments. His physical stature gives him considerable presence. He's turned Forest into the most effective team in the country without the ball, but he knows how to win with often a meagre share of possession, which was as low as 30% at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And thanks to those in football and in broadcasting who took that chance on that fixture over 40 years ago, it was live!